Chris, where does the story of Bring That Down come from?
So the story came from the I was writing a feature film which was going to be my first film that I directed, but it was just getting it couldn't get the budget down low enough, so I was trying to think of something else, and I was walking in the Lake District with my partner, and we're just talking about how this is such a beautiful landscape that's kind of underutilized. And as we were talking about, a shepherd walked up the mountain through the mist with sort of like big jacket on and a cap and his dog, and he just felt like this really cinematic, singular character. And then I was talking about the parable of the Good Shepherd. I was very interested in using parables from the Bible and sort of pulling them apart a little bit and trying to examine what they meant, and the sort of the difference between those sort of stories and my own kind of spirituality and the way that I feel about the world. And that coincided with these incidents in Cumbria and Derbyshire in the north of England, where gangs were cutting the hind legs off sheep and letting them bleed out. So I sort of married all those things together, and that was the kind of starting point for the story.
In recent years, we've seen a resurgence of Irish cinema, thinking of films like The Quiet Girl or The Banshees of Inisherin or Kneecap. What has changed?
I think there's been a monetary change in terms of like there's more money in Ireland to make films with Screen Island, and also there's more of an opportunity since the UK came out of Europe. It's forced producers to think a little bit harder about how we collaborate with other countries, and so there's a lot more co-productions that are going on. But I think there's Ireland has never been short of brilliant storytellers and brilliant actors. For 7 million people, they punch so hard above their weight in terms of like global, like recognized brilliant actors and storytellers and writers and directors. So and I think it's just a generation that's coming through of storytellers that seem to have something to say and finding a really interesting way of saying it.
Yeah, and I think there's a generational thing that's happened as well. We as Chris said, we always had good writers and storytellers, but we weren't great in the visual arts, because we really didn't have that experience. There was virtually no television, and even like until my later childhood, we didn't get television until I was about 7 or 8 years old, So there wasn't really a visual thing there, and Jim Sheridan and Neil Jordan were the first to kind of develop that visual. I mean, Neil is also a novelist, but he developed a visual sense as well, and directed some wonderful films. And I think you're seeing a sort of a second generation of that emerging now, and also the fact that our industry has changed. I think there's more access now for like Ireland was a kind of a sleepy little backwater, and it's much more part of Europe, and because of that, the world in general. So we're more connected, I think, and also I loved the fact about this script that it was bilingual, that it was both Irish and English, and a huge admiration for Chris for wanting to do that. I think there was a bit of a breakthrough with The Quiet Girl on Colleen Kuhn, which helped expose the Irish language and to show that successful films can be made in the Irish language, So that's a big change.
Well, last question for Com. We're huge fans of the Commitments and the Van. What do you remember about those sets? Have you ever rewatched those two films?
Well, yeah, I mean, they were kind of landmark films in Ireland, and they were successful, overseas as well. The Snapper especially is on Irish television at least once a year. So it's like the second and almost into the third generation of audiences are now aware of it, and they still enjoy them very much, and still they're sort of favorites of an awful lot of people. So it's great. I mean, it's great that a film that's 30 years old still gets an audience.